Let's go ahead and get this started. Yes, means fortune, good fortune. Before we proceed, I would like to turn the meeting over to our outstanding student who will receive the President's Award tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the dais Asher Kane Natividad from Ysleta High School.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. My name is Asher Kane Natividad, and I am a senior at Ysleta High School. It is an honor to call this meeting to court. Thank you.
Good evening, and welcome to the Ysleta Independent School District meeting of the Board of Trustees. The meeting of the Board of Trustees is a meeting of a board that the public is allowed to attend. As provided by Ysleta ISD, we invite all members of the public to make their comments during the citizens' input portion at the start of the meeting according to the instructions provided with the electronic posted notice of our meeting. Legally, the board may listen but may not enter discussion on the matters of citizens' input. We remind everyone that this is a board meeting often attended by students, and we ask that we all conduct ourselves in a manner that best represents the values and traditions of the Ysleta Independent School District. This meeting of the Board of Trustees is called to order at 6:07. We have a quorum with Sotero Ramirez, Mr. Shane Haggerty, Mr. Mike Rosales, Mrs. Connie Woodruff, Ms. Catherine Lucero, and myself, Charlie Bustillos. Trustee Ochoa is unable to attend and is excused. Trustee Haggerty, will you please introduce the junior ROTC?
Thank you. It's become a tradition to honor our nation at each of the board meetings by presenting the colors, reciting the pledges of allegiance, and then posting the colors. The colors tonight are being presented by the junior ROTC color guard from the often imitated but never duplicated, the mighty Parkland High School. The color guard commander is Cadet Captain Evan Wilkinson. The other color guard members are Cadet First Sergeant Zachary Winningham, Cadet Captain Laban Rosales, Cadet Staff Sergeant Alan Delgado, and the pledge leader is Cadet Staff Sergeant Damian Castro from Parkland High School. Will you please stand for the presentation of colors, the reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, the Texas Pledge of Allegiance, and a moment of silence. Please remain standing until the cadets have departed.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now please join me in the pledge to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. De La Torre, do we have any recognitions and introductions this evening?
Yes, at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Daniel Martinez, our Associate Superintendent in Communications, for the introductions and presentations.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Vice President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. De La Torre. We have one recognition for you this evening. At this time, we ask Vice President Bustillos to please come to the front of the dais for the recognition. Audience members, please remain seated until the recognition is complete. Thank you. Tonight's recognition is in honor of Ysleta High School senior Asher Kane Natividad, who has proven himself a leader among his peers for his commitment to helping those in need. For the past 4 years, Asher has been a standout service excellence ambassador at Ysleta High School, collecting between 8,000 and 10,000 canned food items for the local food pantry that serves about 400 families in the area. Asher not only collects canned food items, but he helps unload them and package them for distribution throughout the city. His actions require significant physical effort, but more importantly, they reflect his true character. In addition to the canned goods, Asher has also helped collect 2,000 stuffed toys for local senior rehabilitation centers, convalescent homes, orphanages, and pediatric psychiatric units. Asher not only helps those in need, but he is a true leader who never seeks to be recognized for his service. He is a wonderful example of service excellence at Ysleta ISD, and we honor his considerable contributions with the February 2022 President's Award. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our President's Award winner, Ysleta High School senior, Asher Kane Natividad. Let's give him a big round of applause. Asher is accompanied by teacher Ms. Norma Vargas and principal Judy Calderon. Let's hear it one more time for Asher. This concludes our recognition for this evening. Thank you.
Secretary Lucero, do we have any citizens' input this evening?
No, Trustee Bustillos, we do not.
Thank you. Dr. De La Torre, do we have reports? Do you have any reports for us this evening?
Yes, Vice President Bustillos, members of the board, guests, we have 3 reports. The first report is our monthly update on the COVID-19 situation. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Lindy Leeper.
Good evening, Vice President Bustillos, members of the board, and Dr. De La Torre. This is a very short but positive presentation. We're going to talk briefly about the indicators and then look at a summary of our partnership with Immunize El Paso and the vaccine doses that we were able to administer throughout the community. So we have some green today, which we're very pleased to see. This is a decline over day in the number of positive cases, and I'll show you another slide in just a moment that's a little more illustrative of that peak and valley that we've experienced. You can see that hospitalization, which was the primary indicator used by TEA in the Region 19 plan, is at 14%, putting us in code yellow. Out of the last 14 days, 10 of those have been spent in code yellow, which is a marked improvement over January and December. So here are some really nice graphs. You can see that we peaked in our cases, COVID cases, with a 7-day rolling average on January 23rd. Now that we're at February 13th, we are down well under 500 cases per day as compared to 2,000 a day in January. The 14-day rolling average peaked around 100 on January 23rd, and now we are experiencing less cases every day than we did the day before, which is the valley towards the end there of February 13th in the top right graph. And then the hospitalization rate is in the graph at the bottom. You can see that we were up over 20% from January 9th to about January 30th. And now, as you saw on the slide before, we are down around 14%. So positive news for the community and our students and faculty. And then the last slide is just a summary of the vaccine doses administered throughout the community. We offered the clinics at 38 different campuses on 2 different occasions. There was clinic or administration number 1 and then administration number 2. And so we went back to those same campuses roughly a month to 6 weeks apart. Of the doses administered, there were about 5,500 total. 3,456 went to adults, 2,049 went to students, and that's throughout both of those immunization clinics. And with that, I can take any questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Haggerty, I think.
Mr. Hagerty, yes.
I was just curious if you knew how many, I guess percentage-wise, how many of our kids are vaccinated now? And how many are under the age of 12?
I do not have a percentage of how many of our students are vaccinated. That's not one that we're required to ask, and so we're careful about it. If they tell us during contact tracing or something like that, then we may know, but we haven't tracked per student.
Thank you.
How was our participation this time versus the last time?
It's better, actually. The second round, we had more participating than we did in the first, which was a little bit surprising. So I think Omicron woke all of us up.
Right. Anybody else? I think that's it.
Okay.
I'm going to ask Ms. Leeper to remain. She is going to present and go over a plan that you've all had a chance to, I hope, take a look at and consider. It's the 2022 Master Plan, the road ahead. Dr.
Thank you, Dr. De La Torre. So this plan, as Dr. De La Torre mentioned, is our road ahead, and it takes into consideration not only our declining enrollment. We experienced a loss of nearly, well, over 2,000 students. We are now at 37,244 as of the October snapshot. That's a significant decline. We know the pandemic contributed. This plan also looks at the fact that we have a landlocked boundary. It looks at the fact that we have older campuses. It considers the community's significant investment in the district in terms of trust and belief that we are here to do the right thing with their monies. And so with that being said, I'm going to move into the very first part of the plan, which is the 6th grade transition to middle schools. So as a parent who has probably raised one of those who's twixt and tween, not quite a teenager, not really an adolescent anymore, we know that this time in their lives at 6th grade is a significant crossroad. And our middle school counselors are prepared and trained to deal with the challenges that are unique to 6th graders. They're different than 5th graders, different than 9th graders. They are uniquely trained at this level to deal with the social and emotional learning challenges that these students face. If you consider the pandemic impact on the challenges these students face, it's even greater. And so the need for that social emotional support at the middle school level is even more important. As a parent of a blended family, I'm going to tell you that with my 6 kids, this was the bullet that spoke to me the most. If my child enters middle school in the 6th grade, compared to someone who enters in the 7th grade, they both experience a decline in academic performance. It's just a given with those social emotional challenges. But the 6th grader who spends 3 years in middle school, by the time they both get to 8th grade, the 6th grader who spent 3 years will outperform the 7th grader, the transition in the 7th grade. So it's hard no matter when they go, but by the time they get to the 8th grade, if they've spent 3 years there, they'll outperform the one who only spent 2 years there. There are also more opportunities for enrichment activities. So we know that fine arts and athletics and all those things become available at the middle school levels, many of which are not available in the elementary schools. And then finally, they get one more year to create that sense of family, camaraderie with their peers that they're going to spend the next 6 years with, because they're likely all going to the same high school. So these are all academic and enrichment reasons or impacts that we think are important for those sixth graders who we want to move on to the middle school level. And thus our recommendation is in the Bel Air, Eastwood, part of the Hanks community, and all of the Riverside Learning community, we recommend those sixth graders move on to their respective middle schools in August of ’22. Now, you may wonder, why am I only showing you 4 feeder patterns? Because the others are already at the middle school level. Del Valle Learning Community, Ysleta Learning Community, and Parkland Learning Community, sixth graders have been at the middle school level for some time. In the Hanks community, at Glen Cove and Pebble Hills, those sixth graders moved on to middle school some time ago as well. So we have a partial here with Ariel, Tierra del Sol, and Vista Hills who haven't yet moved to the middle school level. One thing I want to emphasize throughout this presentation, Ms. Russell Garcia's team has been phenomenal. Over the years of consolidations that we have seen, not once has someone lost a job because of a consolidation, a relocation, or any other thing to do with campuses or locations. If they have a job today and they want a job next year in the same capacity or similar, they're going to have it. No one loses their job because we consolidate or relocate. And I want to make sure everyone hears that. No staff member, no faculty member, we want them all, and we have a home for everyone. So, as you might expect, if those sixth graders move out of the elementary campuses, we're going to create additional capacity. And the district was the first in the region to implement a universal full-day pre-K program for 4-year-olds. And interestingly, the data proved before the pandemic that those students who spent all day, 4-year-olds who spent all day in a 4-year-old program, achieved a full year's learning growth in 6 months compared to their peers. So those who only spent half a day didn't achieve as much as those who spent a full day in the 4-year program. We want to expand that capacity, expand that opportunity, and bring in 3-year-olds for a universal full-day pre-K program. We also think this will be an opportunity to help us offset declining enrollment, because we know once a baby comes to our district, they never want to leave because this is the district. So again, implement universal pre-K for 3-year-olds this August 2022. And the next section is about consolidations and relocations. So I want to set the context for this and talk to you a little bit about membership, numbers of campuses by learning community. So you can see at the top in the columns are each of the learning communities along with specialty campuses at the far right. In the rows underneath, we have the membership in that learning community, the number of high schools, number of middle schools, number of elementaries, K-8s, pre-Ks, and specialty campuses. So in the Bel Air community, there are 5,433 students with 8 campuses operating, 5 of which are elementaries, 1 is a specialty. You'll notice that across the board, for all learning communities, they all have 1 high school, 1 community has 2 middle schools, everybody else has 1, and then the number of elementaries varies significantly. So in Del Valle, they have 5,000 students, 6 campuses, 3 elementaries. In Eastwood, they have 7,000 students, 7 campuses, 4 elementaries. Hanks has 5,235 students, 5 elementaries, 7 total campuses. Parkland, 5,389 students, 7 campuses, of which 4 are elementaries. Riverside has 3,473 students, 7 campuses, 5 of which are elementaries. 2 of those will be consolidated this year into Riverside Elementary, Escalante, and Cedar Grove. And then Ysleta's learning community has 3,946 students, 7 campuses, of which 2 are middle schools and 4 are elementaries. And so that sets the stage for the rest of the discussion. So beginning in 2022-23, we recommend the consolidation or relocation of Mesa Vista Elementary students to Loma Terrace. Both campuses are underutilized. Mesa Vista needs much more improvement than Loma Terrace, and Loma Terrace was significantly remodeled in 2004 and it will hold 55% more students. So this slide summarizes. Mesa Vista on the top has a capacity of 836 students. 314 are in attendance today. I want to qualify it to make sure you understand that sixth graders have already been taken out. So in order to have an apples-to-apples comparison for what next year looks like, sixth graders have already been presumed to be at the middle school, leaving K through 5 of 314 students. Over the last 8 years, every single year, the average loss has been nearly 3%. So that's 3% per year is the average loss at the Mesa Vista campus, bringing them to a 38% utilization of that campus. Loma Terrace, on the other hand, has capacity for 1,300 students. And over the last 8 years, their average loss has been just slightly more than 1%. They currently utilize only 35% of the campus. I heard a comment yesterday evening about, well, Mesa has more land. They do, but the campus isn't already built. Loma Terrace is already built for 1,300 or for more students. You couldn't move both to Mesa Vista. You can only move them both to Loma Terrace. And so combined, you will see that they would have 764 students in a capacity of 1,300, a building with capacity of 1,300, and a 59% utilization of that campus. It's not mentioned here, but I will tell you that Loma Terrace is undergoing improvements today. Their refrigerated air is being finished. Their vestibule is upcoming. They have a new front entry that's being designed, as well as other improvements to the campus in order to welcome these students to what is a bright, new, cheery environment. And then next, this is a recommendation, and these are all recommendations, to consolidate Del Norte Heights Elementary School with Sageland, having those students move to the Sageland Elementary School. Again, both campuses are underutilized. Del Norte Heights did not receive a bond allocation through the Facility Advisory Committee's recommendation. Sageland was already remodeled in 2004 and under 2019 is receiving significantly more improvements. It also already has the Micro Society Magnet Program. And so Del Norte is built for 968. It has 238 students in K through 5, about a 25% utilization of that campus. And over the last 8 years, they've experienced a loss of 3.65% on average per year. Sageland, on the other hand, has capacity for 770 students. They have 502 today. They occupy about 65% of that building, and they actually have a slight increase in their trend for enrollment, slightly under 0.5%. So if we look at the combined populations, you'll see that the capacity again is 770 at Sageland. The combined membership would be 740, 96% utilization of that campus. Yes, ma'am.
So with the implementation of the pre-K and the 3-year-olds, you'll still have enough room at Sageland if you were to do this?
If we don't have room there, we have room at Loma Terrace. And so there are campuses in every learning community that will have significant space and sufficient space to accommodate a full-day pre-K program.
So there won't be much room for growth, though.
I'm sorry, say it
There won't be
again.
much room for student increase. If we were to do this at Sageland, there's not much room for student increase.
We have campuses that operate at 103% of capacity. So yes, there's potential to put them there. I don't know that I would do it, but yes, there's potential to put them there. Okay? All right. This one is probably new to you, but we have been looking, as you know, at the new Career Technology Center at Riverside High School. And the architects have designed a grand entry, which unfortunately is right where the Riverside Comprehensive Care Clinic sits. And so our recommendation is to relocate them here to a modernized clinic downstairs where our former clinic was. They are experiencing high demand for mental health services, and in fact, we've had to increase hours and providers there, and they are overwhelmed in terms of space. So they are using, in fact, I think they converted a closet recently to an office. So they are out of space. They need more. And one of the comments and some of the research we've done, I'll show you on this slide. This was news to me. If you'll notice here, we looked at 3 years' worth of complete data for students served by learning community at the Comprehensive Care Clinic. The 2022 column is obviously only partial data because we haven't completed the year. The community with the most students being served at the Comprehensive Care Clinic is Eastwood, with 19.48% of all patients served coming out of that community. The next closest is Ysleta's feeder pattern with 15.7%, and then Bel Air, Del Valle, and Riverside are roughly equivalent at about 13.5%. It's no surprise that Parkland's community gets the least service. We think that by moving the clinic to a more centralized location here at central office and then right off of I-10, that we may reach more of those Parkland students and that will be more centrally located to the other feeder patterns as well. This is another recommendation you probably haven't seen before. Plato Academy did not receive any bond funds. Its facility is in disrepair, and so we are recommending the relocation of the entire academy to the Ysleta Community Learning Center, which is currently underutilized, and most of the hours of utilization are either early morning or late afternoon, late evening. And so we believe that we can put them all there together in separate facilities and that they will have a better facility with refrigerated air and receive the same type of learning environment we afford to other students. We would recommend that you move Rio Bravo middle school students to Ysleta Middle School. There are a variety of reasons for this, but the student body at Rio Bravo is now so small, they struggle to build teams. Whether it's football, volleyball, or any other, it's difficult for them to field full teams because they are so small. There are also generally only one teacher teaching each subject, so they don't have the benefit of peer counseling, peer interaction, bouncing ideas off of each other because there's only one of them. And so students are limited and teachers are as well. Both campuses are underutilized. Rio Bravo is too small for me to move Ysleta Middle to it. So the only option is to go the other way for Rio to go to Ysleta Middle School. And if we combine both of them, there will be greater opportunities not only for faculty but for the students in terms of athletics and enrichment. So Rio Bravo was built for 667 students. They serve 6th, 7th, and 8th and only have 300 students. They currently utilize 45% of the building. Ysleta Middle School has a capacity of 972, also serving 6th, 7th, and 8th. They have 549 students and occupy 56% of the building. So together, in a building that serves 972, you would have 851 students and utilize about 88% of the campus. And then, as you may know, last year, or 2 years ago, Young Women's Leadership Academy was relocated to Hillcrest from Ranchland. Hillcrest received about $1.5 million in improvements at that time, but it didn't get refrigerated air. And when we went to look at what it would cost to repair the roof and install or convert to refrigerated air, the architects came back with an estimate of $13 million. Those of you who participated in the Facility Advisory Committee probably remember that no bond monies were allocated for Young Women's Leadership Academy, so the funding is not available. So what we recommend is that we move them to the Rio Bravo facility, which has bond money and which already has partial refrigerated air and has many other amenities that we can't develop at the Hillcrest facility. If we move Young Women's Leadership Academy there, they have 369 students today. The capacity, again, of Rio Bravo is 667, so they would be utilizing 55% of that facility. And with that, I can take questions. So this is just a schedule that's coming up. Yes, sir. Tonight, I'm introducing to the board, Dr. De La Torre, I think, has maybe already met with one neighborhood community organization, and over the next 2 weeks, we will meet with every single campus affected. We'll have separate faculty meetings, community meetings, and then we'll have the plan uploaded on the website by the end of the month. And then in late March and early April, Cabinet meets with all the faculty, and then HR starts meeting with those faculty members to determine where do you want to go, because they get a choice. Would you rather transfer to a different learning community? Do you live in the Northeast and you'd prefer to work in the Northeast? Then let us help you get to that location. So they start that very detailed work so that we're ready by August of 22 to roll out this plan. Okay, now I know that's a lot of information, so let me take questions.
Any questions? Mr. Rosales?
Excuse me. First of all, I want to thank all the work that went into this planning. When I read the communication from Dr. De La Torre, I was very encouraged by the thought behind doing this. And so the comments that I have is just for those sixth graders, these areas where we're going to move the sixth graders, I want to make sure in terms of how things are today, that the parents and the children have all the support that is necessary, because going from sixth grade to middle school is mentally, it's a big jump. And so I mentioned this in my response, and I'm mentioning it out here publicly, that as a parent, I would want them to be reassured that they and their children would be taken care of, to prevent any suspicions or fears of any sort. They're going into a different sea, and I understand that. The other thing that I'd like to ask, and you might have a number or two, on the young women's leadership changeover, is there an estimate on how much the air conditioning is going to cost?
At Rio Bravo?
At Rio Bravo, yes.
I don't have those estimates off
Any
the
yet?
top of my head, but I do know that the bond money is more than sufficient to cover the HVAC conversion, the
So
remaining
we're
HVAC
covered
conversion.
there.
So we would be fulfilling our commitment that every student-occupied campus will have refrigerated air.
Great.
It was going to be a challenge to do it at Hillcrest.
And the other last question is, in doing this move, what are the anticipated costs? Because it's not, when you move a facility, it's just not done free. So I'm sure there's going to be some modifications that we need to look at, reconsider.
Yes, sir. So with the Riverside Comprehensive Care Clinic moving downstairs, I'm estimating less than $500,000 to renovate it. The YCLC renovation, if I have to add portables, and I'm thinking that we may need 3 or 4 there in addition, that and the remodeling of the annex building, no more than $1 million there. But that's all offset. Those are one-time costs, plus I'm getting cost avoidance of $13 million on Hillcrest, and then I'm saving operationally. If I do 2 consolidations, operationally we're saving almost $3 million every year. If I fulfill 3 of these consolidations, then I would be saving almost $4.6 million every year.
And then that, you bring up a good point, and I publicly want to at least go on record. When I read the numbers, it looked like it was like a $7 million transition in savings. Is that correct?
It's very close to that if we do
It's very
all of the
close.
plan. Yes, sir.
I think there was a one-time $1 million savings, but in any case, when you put it all together, initially it'd be about $7 million that we're looking at, which I think is very important to, in prefacing this with the fact that we're not losing teachers, that we do things, but I think this is another example of Ysleta looking after the taxpayer and making sure that we do what's correct, proper, and still maintain the high level of education for our children. And I thank all of you that are involved in this. That's it.
Just
Thank you,
real
Mr.
quickly, with regard to the sixth graders, we understand that's going to be a concern for some parents, and we've already started working with the principals at those schools so that they understand that there are ways where you can almost isolate the sixth graders for a majority of the day. There's no way we're going to give parents any guarantee that their sixth grader is not going to come across a seventh or eighth grader. But the other thing is that we are the last and remaining school district that doesn't have sixth graders in middle school. So it's happening all around us. It will really, I think, be up to us when we go out to meet with those parents to really outline all of the benefits of having their children at the middle school. When that creates capacity at the elementary schools, for example, Eastwood, and Eastwood is unique in that it has a lot of families that are on waiting lists. If there is availability in the various grade levels, it gives us a chance to bring in more students without jeopardizing a 3-year-old program or a 4-year-old program. And again, we'll mitigate some of that decline in enrollment that we've experienced since 1987. So I see that as probably one of the challenges, making people feel at ease and comfortable. The last thing is that those schools also get additional administrators and additional security to make sure that those students and their families feel safe.
Any other questions?
I just want to make a comment that Dr. De La Torre talked, and I'm glad he explained it publicly. Of some of my concerns, which are, I'm sure, the concerns of the parents. Thank you, Doctor.
Mr. Ramirez?
Dr. De La Torre, can you, Dr. Chacon shared with me earlier today about the transition camps, much like the freshmen, the middle schoolers going to high school, that the transition camps that we're going to do for elementary schools going to middle school?
So the fifth grade students who at the moment believe that they're going to be back on their campus, all of those students would have an opportunity during the summer to be oriented, inducted, introduced to the middle school, the campus, the routines, the patterns, the teachers, the schedules, so they become very comfortable and familiar with the campus before the first day of school, so that when they finally arrive in August, they've spent time at that campus without 7th and 8th graders present. They know where their classes are. The last thing you want to see is a bunch of 6th graders running around trying to figure out where hallway B is at or where hallway C is at. We want them to be so comfortable that when they arrive, they know where to go directly. We've also talked about staggered start times so that they arrive and then 15, 20 minutes later, the 7th and 8th graders arrive, but they're already in class and they've started their day, which means that they're out of class and leaving the campus when 7th and 8th graders are still quite not yet out of there. So all of these ideas are on the table to try to make the transition as comfortable for the parent and the student as possible.
And just, I'm just saying this as an informational thing, but if a parent has a specific concern and they want to talk to somebody at the district, maybe not somebody at their school, how would they go about doing that, sir?
They can contact student services, they can contact our chief academic officer, they can contact me. Probably the best way to do it would be to reach out to the principal at the school. The principal at the school could give us their information. One of us would call them and invite them to come in and sit with us.
Okay, thank you. I have a few more comments, Mr. Bustillos. First off, on the Ysleta pre-K, or not Ysleta pre-K, but the pre-K program, I'm extremely excited about that, and I just think that's the right thing for us to do, and I'm thrilled that our district is powering our way through that. I think that's important, especially with what's happened with COVID and the learning loss that we've encountered, that this is a great opportunity. Ms. Leeper, can you go back to the last YWLA? Yeah, there we go. So with the current utilization, it would be 35%, but you have future utilization at 55%. Where did that 55 come from?
The 55 is based on being at Rio Bravo. The 35 is based on where they are today. So they're currently at Hillcrest. They're only using 35% of that building.
Okay. Okay, I see what you're saying. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just go back to the 6th grades moving to, or in my community, we've been there for a while, but moving to middle schools. I will tell you, I've had some concern about it, and not so much about the separation, because I know we can separate the 6th graders from the rest of the middle school, but I did have some concern about younger children, smaller children being in that middle school environment. We've spent a lot of time talking about this, and while I'm a little more comfortable with that concept, I would again encourage parents, if they have any questions, to please get with your principal and talk about that and share that concern if you have that. But I think that this overall is going to be a good move. In those places that we have a K through 8, we've had great success, and I look forward to that. The issue with the middle school consolidation in the Ysleta learning community, I can't tell you, I'm incredibly disappointed that we have to even consider this. And yeah, I remember when Rio Bravo was built way back when, and I saw that as a great future for our community, for our learning community, and for our community as a whole in the Lower Valley. And for whatever reason, gentrification or whatever reason, we were having to make a hard decision. And again, I'm disappointed that we have to do this, but I understand it. And as a steward of the district's money and the taxpayer money, it's the right thing to do. And so for those Rio Bravo parents, those people, those citizens in our learning community, if they want to visit on that, I'll be glad to come out, and I'll try to make the meetings as well. But I'll be glad to come out and visit with them to talk about that. But yeah, I'm extremely disappointed that we have to do this. But it is the right thing to do. And these other moves that we're having to make, it's the right thing to do. And it's never easy. And I realize that schools are the center, are more than just, you know, a place for kids to get educated. They're a center of our neighborhoods, and people have strong opinions and strong emotions wrapped around them, as well as I do. So I appreciate the hard work that's gone in developing this, and the thought, and then the time that we've taken to review this and consider this. And I also appreciate the fact, as Dr. Daughter mentioned a moment ago, that everything's still on the table as far as discussion and coming up with the plan on how we do things. I had the privilege of attending the middle school Christmas concert, and I want to tell you, I was really thrilled because the whole place was packed with kids, you know, and students and performing, and it was just a wonderful program. I didn't realize until, because I wasn't paying attention when they did the introductions, that it was actually a combination of both middle schools, Ysleta Middle and Rio Bravo, and some high school, and some of our high school performers. And so I love the idea of seeing that. I like the idea of us making sure we field sports teams, we field fine arts groups, and then as we expand programs and offerings, that we continue to do that and create great opportunity for our students and other opportunities that perhaps we couldn't do in a smaller school. So with that, I want to express my appreciation to Dr. De La Torre and to the cabinet for the thought that they've put in doing this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Anybody else?
I think that these recommendations, they're always hard to process and work through. When we made the decision a couple years back for LeBaron and Alicia Chacon, that was definitely challenging and hard, and we were basically moving kids out to put other kids in. But at the end of the day, I just believe that we are the district as a whole. So every single decision that is made here, it doesn't matter if it's in the Del Valle Learning Community, in the Bel Air Learning Community, Riverside, it doesn't matter. We're doing it in the best interest of the Ysleta community as a whole. And so I think, and I want to say that to my fellow board members, you know, we are in this together. So while it might happen in a learning community that we individually represent, we're making these decisions collectively, and we understand and we will support each other, and we'll always do what's in the best interest of the community as a whole.
Thank you, Ms. Lucero. Anybody else? I had just one question for the little ones. Is there going to be any modifications done to the schools that receive them, since they're little guys?
So, I'm sorry, did you ask me if there are
For the pre-K?
modifications?
Yeah, any modifications for the schools that are receiving the pre-K?
So generally speaking, we are already prepared with the spaces and the furniture to accommodate the 3-year-olds. We won't have a significant dollar investment to do so. There may be a little bit of furniture that needs to be ordered, but for the most part, we already provide employee daycare, and many of those facilities are already administering services for 3-year-olds, and so we will be able to incorporate that space for the 3-year-old pre-K.
Okay. Thank you.
And just a couple of things, because I know these are very difficult decisions, and ultimately they will be visceral, emotional when you go out to the communities. But unless you make these kind of difficult decisions, then you don't have the resources, and we want to make sure they understand that it is what is allowing us to remodel and remodernize Pasadena. It is what's allowing us to get other schools who otherwise would simply get a coat of paint, safety vestibules, some perimeter fencing, but we don't have the capacity for a bond for probably another 10, 12 years. And so you're going to you either have the option of giving everybody sort of a, sort of a day at the spa, or making difficult decisions and really making it lasting change with front entrances and vestibules and new furniture and new windows and new siding and things like that. And it's very difficult to do that. The other thing is when you look at some of the schools and you look at the 8-year trend and you see 3% or 5%, for some of those really small schools, there's no reason and no evidence to suggest that that 5% won't continue into the future, and that a school that may have 300 students today, in a matter of 2 or 3 years, could have 200 students, because there isn't any external variable that's going to change that 3% every year. And the reason for that, of course, is because we don't have any residential area where someone could say, well, you know what if they build a housing development? That is true for some school districts, but that is not true for ours. We were once a school district of over 50,000 students. We are a school district of 37,200 students, and we are likely to continue and see some of those small but incremental declines in enrollment in those very specific areas. And it just happens to be right now that they're being very adverse and detrimental to Bel Air, Ysleta, and the Riverside area. Del Valle, we could have very well been having this conversation about Del Valle, but because of the Alicia Chacon situation, it kind of took care of itself by closing a school, in effect, and those students ended up at Lancaster and Del Valle Elementary School. So they went through the process prior to this process. Some of the things that we have to be aware of is that Parkland is the only area that may see explosive growth in residential area, and that's around the corner. But for the rest of us, I like to tell people, I don't want to be the best district. I want to simply be the best. I don't want to be the largest district. I want to be the best district. Whether it's best for 30,000 students or best for 38,000 students, I want those students to have a great experience. So we do plan on going out starting on Monday to all of these schools. We will typically meet with the faculty in the morning, and we will invite the parents and the community in the evening, and we'll keep you all aware of the kind of reaction we're getting.
Ms.
I
Woodruff?
do have one question. Will Bel Air Middle be ready to receive the 6th grade?
So Bel Air Middle will not be ready until October intersession. And the plan is so that the 6th graders form a cohesive unit, are sheltered a little while before their transition. We're going to move them all to Mesa Vista and start them out on their middle school bell schedule with their middle school teachers temporarily, because Steele's behind. And so to get Bel Air Middle finished, it won't happen until October at the first intersession, and then we will pick those students up who have started the year at Mesa Vista and put them in their new classes at Bel Air Middle.
She wants to know how many students is that? I don't know.
I think we can tell. Let me see if I have it. I don't have it on my table. It's roughly 400 students. Yes, it's roughly 400. So right now there are about 800, a little more than 800 there, and we're building a third more for the 6th graders, so about 400.
Any more questions?
130 students.
Ms. Woodruff, you're good? Yes.
There was one more
Mr.
question.
Settle.
Since we're also discussing the plan forward, just wanted to, as we consolidate, and we have already consolidated several areas, what are we doing with those properties? What do we plan to do with the properties? Because now we're going to have even more vacant properties, and so I think the community needs to know that as well.
So we sold South Loop. Camino Real, we are going to demo the part of the campus we're going to demo it all at Camino Real and then maintain the vacant property. We have met with a property developer in town who has an interest in 2 of our properties. Then RFK, we will abate and demolish. You may remember we held off doing so because at one time the city was interested in a partnership with us and then withdrew their offer. And then, let me think, and then we have the Alicia Chacon property on Prado Road. We haven't decided yet whether to demolish the whole facility. We know the old part must be, But the library there was in pretty good condition, and so we're wondering if there may be an opportunity to use it alone as a PD area in the lower valley around the Ysleta and Riverside areas. So we're still looking at it and talking with an architect to see if that's feasible, if we can have power and utilities just to that building and then create parking and access. So we have plans to continue maintaining whatever buildings remain on our inventory. We're trying to engage a real estate broker. We went out for bid for one to begin with about 2 months ago and received no responses. I think we're going to go out again because now we're starting to see the interest pick up. I think it's just across the city where there's a shortage in property and buildings. And so we're going to try again to get a broker. And then if we don't sell something, we'll continue to maintain it so it doesn't become an eyesore. Yes, ma'am? No? Oh, okay.
Any other questions? I think that's it, Ms. Leeper.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leeper. Next we have, Champagne, right? Champagne.
Good evening,
Good evening, Champagne.
Mr. Bustillo, Dr.
Oh.
De La Torre, and all board members. I have very quick summary report for everybody. For this past month, we have, next page, please. We have 8 projects going on and 1 report issue with a corrective action plan needed, and we completed 3 audit projects and 3 hotline cases. Next page, please. And these are the reports that included in the weekly package. Alicia Chacon, Hanks Middle School, Verde, Student Health Service Center Departments. Next page, please. Next. Next, please, yes. Currently, we have 8 department projects ongoing, and Eastwood North, we decided we should postpone until the next principal, since there was not much change going on. And then we have follow-up projects for Parkland Pre-K ongoing. So these are the projects that currently we were working on. Last week, we completed a unannounced elementary schools cash management audit, and I am in the process of writing up all the reports to share with everybody. Next page, please. That's all for tonight. Thank you all very much, and I really greatly appreciate all the principal, associates' support, and when we visit campus, they are also very supportive. It's unannounced, however, I do call principal ahead of time to let principal know not to do anything, not to prepare their stuff, so we do a reality check.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Ramirez.
I just wanted to say to Ms. Champagne, thank you for the New Year greeting and Happy Year of the Tiger
Yes,
to you.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. The translation is in the quote of whatever the envelope says.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Wish everybody a wonderful Year of the Tiger.
yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Can I ask another question?
Yes,
For
absolutely.
Ms. Leeper. Ms. Leeper, Ms. Leeper, just when you thought you were off the hook, we received all these funds because of the pandemic from state and federal sources. What is there an anticipated audit plan that we have to, that may not come under Champagne that we as a district have to report to?
So not only will our financial third-party auditors look at it, but the feds are strictly auditing these funds. So yes, there is a much more stringent audit process by the federal government over these funds. And so yes, and we are preparing by attending various trainings offered by our third-party financial auditor, Whitley Penn, as well as other TASB and TASBO source trainings.
Okay, and I know that when you do the 42 briefings for the trustees and for budget preparation this year, that the auditor or the I just drew a blank, the CPA firm that reviews our records and such, will you make sure that we have a separate reporting thing in their report for those monies, so they can talk about that and just kind of give their thoughts on that?
Yes, sir, I can do that. My anticipation would be that they'll do it with the regular financial audit, which occurs, they come and talk to us usually in November, because our year ends July, and they'll audit. Fed year ends, is it August? I think September 30th. So they have different year ends, but our auditor will review all of those major funds and then give us an audit report. Now, they typically report on all of it in November, but if you want them to come during budget, I can certainly ask that.
Well,
I just
I
don't
don't-
think they'll have the audit done yet.
No, I don't think they'll have the audit done either. And the only thing I don't want to have happen is that we've got this pile of money and then we got a whole bunch of new money and and everything looks fine. I just like to know how we're doing on that.
Absolutely.
Please. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Any other questions? Okay. Let's move on to the public hearing. We will now open up the public hearing on the Texas Assessment Performance Report presentation. Following the report, the public is invited to ask questions or make comments. Dr. De La Torre, please lead us into the Texas Assessment Performance Report and presentation this evening.
Vice President Bustillo, members of the board, I'd like to introduce Dr. Raul Medin and Dr. Brenda Chacon.
Good evening, Vice President Bustillo, members of the board, Dr. De La Torre. It is my pleasure to present to you our annual Texas Academic Performance Report. We are required by law to provide you with, give me 1 second here, my screen is not moving. Oh, keyboard. I apologize. It's been too long since I've presented for you, so I apologize. The presentation for the TAPR is required by the Texas Education Code, and it's also it includes other pieces of legislation that require us to provide you the information in a way that safeguards confidentiality of student data. And so the performance report includes all of the academic performance from the previous year for the district. It includes the accreditation status, the PIMS analysis standard reports, the violent and criminal incidents, and school violence prevention policies, and the results of evaluations from the Safe and Drug-Free Act, and the performance of our graduates in higher education, as well as the campus goals and objectives that we provide for the previous year. So all of this information, it is part of the Texas Academic Performance Report. And we're just going to give you a really quick summary tonight. For academic performance for last year, you can see here what the percent of students that were rated approaches grade level in our district compared to the region and the state for all the subjects that were tested last year. You will see here that we were higher, our performance was higher in both reading and math, writing and science for when compared to the region, and we were below the state on all of those measures. One thing that we would like to present here to you is the effect that COVID has had on these measures. This slide right here shows you how we have been growing from 2016 until the 2019 TAPR, and then what the change was with the 2021. In 2020, we didn't have any STAR scores because nobody was in school. And so the first time that we had a chance to get more data on how students were mastering content was in 2021. And this is data from the time where most of our students were still going remotely. We were not really in person for the most part in our schools. And so you can see here that we had been consistently improving about 4 percentage points each year between 2016 and 2019 for reading, for example. And then we had a drop of 13 points in 21. And so all of these drops that you see for 21 across the board are very indicative of a single event, right? Which we know was COVID, because everything else had been going up throughout the years. And so that's what we can see here from those effects. However, one thing that we would like to point out is that even with those effects, when we look regionally, if you look at math, for example, math was one of the subjects that had the greatest drops. We had a 29-point drop between 2019 and 2021 on the approaches grade level rating. But even at that, we had better performance than the other large districts in our region for every single math grade with the exception of one. And so even though we have these drops that are mind-boggling, really, on their scale, we ended up doing better than the other districts around us. You can see also then for end of course, our students perform better as well than the other districts. So for our special education students, I think this is one of the parts of the data that makes me very proud of being part of the Ysleta Independent School District, because you can see here that our teachers and administrators do not let our special education students fall through the cracks. And this shows clearly when the great majority of grade levels and subjects were, our students performed better than anybody else in our region. And for many of these in the state as well. And so we have been, as a district, we've had higher performance even with the drops. And we can see this information as well for our EL students at the approaches grade level point. We've also outperformed regionally for most of the grade levels and most of the subjects. When we're looking at the meets grade level standard, you can see there that we outperform in the region for math and writing and science, and then we're lower in reading and social studies. And the state was higher than we were on those performance. Again, we can see here how we had been growing consistently year after year, and then we have a sudden drop on the meets grade level standard. With the same idea, we can look regionally, and we can still see, again, even though there's not as much green as there was on the approaches grade level, students are still performing at a higher level than in the other regions, both all students, our special education students, and our EL students. So across the board, even approaches and grade level and meets grade level, our students are performing better than the region, even after having all of these drops. The percent of students rated master's grade level for each of the subjects still looks a little bit low, right? We performed on par with the region for reading, and we were better than the region in math and science and writing, and then we were below in social studies. We can see the same trends here as the master's level as we have seen in the approaches and the meets grade level. The incremental improvement over the years followed by the drop of COVID. And even at master's grade level, we can still see there's a little bit less green on the graphs, but we are still outperforming our regional partners. Same thing with special education students and EL students. When it comes to academic growth, the STAR academic growth, because there were no 2020 STAR assessments provided, then the state couldn't perform a calculation of growth because they require year-over-year STAR scores to provide that growth, and so we have no information on this particular indicator. Now for graduation rates, we can see here that we are performing better than the region, both for on the past 2 years, both in the 4-year graduation rate and the 5-year graduation rate, and we are very close to the state average on both rates. Now, dropout rates, we want to have them lower rather than higher, and on this, we are performing much better than both the region and the state for both the 4-year dropout rate and the 5-year dropout rate. For career, college career and military readiness, I am very happy to report that our graduates have done much better than both the region and the state by far. And so we have a much higher number of graduates, even during the COVID year. The 2020 graduates is right when COVID was hitting hard. Even then, we are almost 15 points higher than the state and almost 10 points higher than the region on our college career military readiness. You can also see here that this is not due to one individual indicator. We have a lot more graduates that are college ready, and we have more graduates that are career ready. And so we are preparing students for both career, college, and military at a higher rate than both the region and the state. When it comes to PIMS financial standard reports, I'm not going to go very much into it because our expert is Ms. Leeper, and this is just something that we require to provide you. And the first thing that we always provide you is the revenue source. This is something that we show every year, and it's true this year as it ever was. Our district depends heavily on state and federal income, much more than the rest of the state. Well, we need to have our income base is basically state and federal funded. For expenditures by function, these are, there's a lot of information here, but the main thing that I would like to ask you to notice is that the greatest piece of expenditures is on instruction. And our district spends about 2% of the overall budget higher in instruction than the rest of the state. And so we're putting more on, as much as we can, really, on the instructional piece, and that shows when we're compared with the rest of the state. When it comes to violent and criminal incidents, this is usually my least favorite part of the report. And this year, we have seen a lot less incidents. One of the reasons is that this is because this is data from the 2020-2021 PIMS report, for which most of our students were learning remotely. And so there weren't that many students in the campus, and so we had a lot fewer incidents happen in this year. You can see here that overall we had less than 0.2% of our population involved in violent and criminal incidents. Compared to 2020, you can see here the major difference. So the first one, the possession, for example, is one of the biggest ones that we had. We had 266 incidents in 2020 and 52 in 2021. The others are really small numbers, and but you can see here the reason for that is that we were not present in the campus as often. And so we expect these numbers to go back. They were not bad before. And so we are expecting those numbers to go back to the same numbers that we see around 2020. Now, the performance of our graduates in higher education, we have not seen a large change in the percent of our students enrolling in higher education following their graduation from high school. Part of the reason we haven't seen that, if you notice here, is that they're looking at the class of 2019 and before. So the issues with COVID are not necessarily fully realized here in this data. So we are likely to see a drop next year when they're looking at the 2020 graduates, because they might have decided to not continue on higher education then. So this one lags even longer than the rest of the data. So at this point, we can see that it's a fairly stable trend at the district level. But it's likely to fluctuate down a little bit in the next couple of years. And the complete performance report is available on our website, and if you all have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Mr. Haggard, can we start with Mr. Haggard?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I had a question regarding I guess more than anything, just the 7th grade, the math and the writing scores. What are we doing to make sure that those scores are coming up, but at the same time, those kids that are now in 8th grade, what are we doing to ensure that they'll be successful going into the high school? We've got 4 years left with those kids. And if they're not passing 7th grade math and they're not able to write, how are we going to have them go out and become productive members of society?
So Dr. Chacon can answer better on that.
Yes, I can answer. Good evening, President Ochoa, he's not here. Mr. Haggerty. We are doing many things. As Dr. Medellin said, the math is the area that took the greatest hit across the state, across the district. So we have incorporated a few things. First of all, using our ESSER money, we incorporated the past tutors. We have past tutors with our middle schools, with our elementaries, and with our high schools to definitely remediate the learning loss. That's one. We have that common intervention at all our middle schools where they have a 45-minute advisory period where, again, those interventions for those particular grade levels are happening. That's the learning loss side. And we are also working on our pacing guides, our PLCs, to making sure that we address those TEKs in 7th grade because they're still those kids are now in 8th grade. They have that gap. They're missing 7th grade TEKs plus now 8th grade TEKs. So we, in the summer, adjusted our curriculum guides to make sure that all that was spiraled in and incorporated throughout. So the data currently that our students are taking are interim data. They just finished interim 2.
That was going to be my follow-up question.
Yeah, they have interim 2, so we've been tracking them, and we do see growth in the area of math. It's moving in the right direction.
Is it a significant growth? Is it moderate?
It's moderate growth, but again, we still have about 14 weeks of instruction left before the students test. Most of those TEKs have not. There's about 2 more units missing in math that we need to teach, and then we'll make sure we incorporate. Our principals are working on the intercession plans as well, making sure that we strategically bring in the right groups for the right reasons for intercession, as well as our Saturday camps, and even during the day intervention will start changing as we go into the 4th 9 weeks.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramirez?
Good evening, sir. At the end of your presentation, you said that the data will fluctuate. I missed that. Can you tell me what's going to fluctuate?
Oh, yes. The percent of students that enroll in college right after graduating from high school, that will likely drop because our 2020 graduates were, the students that graduated in 2020, they're still not included in this report. They're going to be included in the next year's report. And those are the students that really had a hard time deciding to go to college because it was right in the middle of the worst part of the pandemic. And so we are likely to see a lower percentage of our students enroll into college from that class, from the 2020 graduation class. And then after that, it's going to go back up again because we're preparing the students to go back. And it may take a couple of years to bring those numbers. This bump, unfortunately, it takes time to bring back 2 years worth of issues and have students grow and have them be confident enough to be able to enroll in college again. So those numbers are likely to go down. We were kind of steady, and then they're going to go down a little bit probably next year, and then it'll take a little while before they start going up again.
Thank you very much. Oh,
I'm sorry,
I had one more question.
Yes, sir.
Dr. De La Torre, can you talk a little bit about the percentage of SPED students and emerging bilingual students that we're serving now in the district?
Yeah, we're one of those districts where the number of students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged increases gradually every year. The number of students who are emergent English learners, I think, is at about 26%. So 1 in 4 of every students that arrive at our doorstep needs support relative to second language acquisition, English language acquisition. And our reputation as being far and above the best district or the trusted district when it comes to serving students with special needs has resulted in, I believe, 12%, 13% of our students being on an IEP or on a plan. In the meantime, you've got those districts that have significant residential development going the opposite way. They're seeing less students who come from families who have an economically recessed reality. The number of EL students is also falling, so whereas 1 in 4 of ours are EL students, Socorro is down now to 1 in 5 or 20% instead of 25%. And their special ed population, I believe, is around 8% and not 13%. That's why when you look at the program surrounding distinctions, what they do is they compare your district to districts like you. And when compared to districts with similar demographics and circumstances and realities, we do very, very well. But we're not in the same 100 schools that Socorro is in now. Socorro, because of all that growth out there, has moved into a more affluent group of schools, which make it much harder for them to be a top performer with Mesquite and Plano and some of those schools that they're creeping toward. I think that El Paso is still relatively like Ysleta Independent School District, but I think Socorro and Canutillo are seeing a shift in a different direction.
I just wanted to say, and as part of this discussion tonight, that Ysleta ISD and public ed in general, we embrace the opportunity to serve all students, regardless of you know, where they live and the challenges that are presented to them and their families. And so, and that doesn't happen without just really great teachers and administrators in our schools. And so,
Right.
and so the success that you see here is because of the folks that are out there in the four walls of the classroom. And so, but I think that's probably one of my favorite things of all the many great things that we do here at the district is we have open doors, we welcome every child, and we treat every child as an individual and try to maximize their learning potential. So
That's right. That's right. And a lot of our teachers and support staff and a lot of our principals, leaders, grew up in this community. And many of them work for us because they were students with us and they know that there are no excuses. Everyone is expected to give 110% when they arrive at the campus, and the majority of our teachers, the vast majority of our teachers do that every day.
thank you, sir.
Ms. Woodruff?
Yes. First thing I want to say is I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Remedes. It warms my heart to know that we do serve that many special ed students, and we don't do it grudgingly. We do it because you have to spend more money for that kind of a population. But we do it because we do care about all of our students. I totally agree with what you're saying, and thank you for saying that. My question, and it kind of seems a little odd maybe, because I'm wondering about the social studies, because in every category, we're below everyone else in social studies. Is there a reason for that? And what are we doing to fix that?
Good evening, Mrs. Woodruff. So similar answer to Mr. Haggerty. Of course, the dips that we took are not taken lightly. We are addressing the social studies component. We have a new middle school director and new middle school team, and we've restructured things. So one thing that we're doing is definitely working with our 8th grade social studies teachers in kind of a smaller setting, PLCing, unpacking TEKS with them, and following our data. If we look at our common assessments, again, we are seeing growth in that particular area. The only problem with the interim is we take it once. So the interim is a one-time assessment for social studies, so the growth there is a little difficult to see, but they have been working with our 8th grade PLCs and unpacking those TEKS. As you know, the RLA TEKS are changing, and you will start seeing what we call cross-curricular. So a lot of it is really using those reading strategies, and I'm speaking to a teacher across the board. And so that is something, our big emphasis is making sure that our kids are listening, reading, writing, speaking, and thinking in social studies and science and math to be able to apply the knowledge that they're learning to the new assessment. So we're working with them. We've additionally purchased some additional PD resources for our 8th grade social studies teachers to make sure that we also address the gaps with social studies. And I'd like to remind everybody that social studies is that's going through a huge review right now. It starts off just general social studies, the community. It goes into 4th grade Texas history, jumps into 5th grade U.S. history, then world geography, and then all of a sudden the students go back to U.S. history. So it is something that's not aligned, and so we do need to make sure that our teachers really understand those standards and expose the kids to the rich social studies experience.
So Is there some sort of legislation that is aligning that through the?
Actually, it's going through a review right now, a TEKS review through your State Board of Ed, and they're reviewing them. They're trying to align them. It was a task that was given, I think, 2 legislations ago. I can't remember the last time they were reviewed, but that is a set of TEKS that's being reviewed right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Rosales?
I don't mean to be negative, but when you put the performance, and you say, well, in most cases, we are outperforming the other districts, which is fine. But not all the time, but a large percentage of times when if you look, and I'll probably visit with you. You're saying, well, we're doing better, but when I see the comparison to the state, we're falling behind. Now, you kind of work this thing because now we're more successful in getting kids to college, but in the end, when you look at the other reports, you know, we want to compare and we want to be the best in the district, but I'd like to see us be very competitive in the state, because we got to keep in mind that when they leave, they're going into a big sea, and the better prepared they are and the more competitive we are, all during the course of their education here. And I'm not saying that we're not doing it, it's just that caught my eye. I kept looking at the state level as opposed to where we're at.
Yes, sir. And one of the things that is also, that may explain a little bit the differences is that the STAR performance is a snapshot of last year. The CCMR measures, which are the ones where we're far higher than the state, those are cumulative. That's based on cumulative work from K to 12. And so the CCMR measures that we see were not as affected by COVID because we had been working with these students for 12 years. And so one bad year wasn't enough to bring that percentage down, and it showed on that. And so that's why you can see then how the drops on STAR are so big, because that was just a snapshot. How did we do in 2021? And one of the other things to remember on that is that our community, just like other large metropolitan areas, we're having a much harder time getting students in the classroom during the 2020-21 school year than the rest of rural Texas. In rural Texas, there were places where they had no COVID, whereas in our urban areas, we were having an entirely different issue. And so there are many places in Texas that never closed schools, that students were going to class as if nothing had changed. Not so in the large cities. And so that's why also we can see a large difference on that snapshot in STAR between the state and us.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? I have one, Dr. Chacon. What's our participation on, I know we talked about the tutoring and the intersessions. What's our participation on the kids that are showing up to these programs to help boost their scores up?
So our first intervention, the one that is during the day, that is our most solid intervention in elementary. So we have different periods of the day because that's when we have all the kids.
Right.
So that is our best intervention. So at those interventions that happen during the day, obviously all the kids that are there that need intervention. After school, intercession, Saturday camps, all of the other extra things that we do, I would say that we have about a 70% participation rate of the kids who get invited. So not everybody comes for intercession, not everybody comes to Saturday school and so forth. And we understand students participate in athletics, students have other catechism and things that so our best opportunity for intervention happens during the day. And that's why every single one of our schools has a common intervention time, because that's when we have the students there.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Haggerty.
I apologize, but that kind of sparked a question. What percentage of students took the test, that showed up to take the test? Was this when attendance was still not mandatory in person? And if they didn't come in, they didn't take the test?
We had an overall between 82 and 85% participation on the test. The campuses did a really good job of encouraging students to to attend. And if you look at it by subjects, our high school students, there were about 95% of the students that took the test. But overall, and if we look at it by student groups, they were all within the 80%. So these numbers are fairly representative of our district.
That's what I was going to ask. Out of that 15%, how much of those were in a student group that traditionally performs well on these tests?
Yes, no, we had about 82% of our EL students, about 85% of our special education students attended, 82% of our at-risk students attended. So all across the board, when you look at the different student groups, we had about the same percentage of participation.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Steros stepped out, so, Mario, do we have any, where am I? I lost it. Do we have any, we signed in to speak? Nobody? Okay.
No, sir.
Nobody has signed up to speak. No public comment. Thank you, and let's go to the agenda review. Oh, public hearing is now closed. Sorry about that, moving forward. The agenda review. We will now discuss the agenda items as listed in the posted notice of a regular meeting of the Ysleta Independent School District Board of Trustees for February 16, 2022, and related recommendation motions with the superintendent and executive cabinet, and received responses, questions, and or requests for additional information through the superintendent preparation for deliberation and action on set items at the February 16, 2022 regular Board of Trustees meeting. Please stop me if you have any questions, wish to pull any items on a separate consideration. Consent. Minutes of Board of Trustees Workshop Regular Board Meeting, January 12th, 2022, 6 p.m. Board of Trustees Superintendent Evaluation Meeting, January 26, 2022, 6 p.m. Monthly financials updated for as of December 2021. Number 4, low attendance day waiver district-wide on December 17, 2021. Now we have number 5, staff development waiver application. We have number 6, resolution convening the Student Health Advisory Committee on curriculum materials regarding human sexuality and on prevention of child abuse, family violence, dating violence, and sex trafficking. I wish to pull this item in for a separate consideration, correcting the recommendation by administration. Okay?
I did have a question on that. Can I go
Yes,
ahead and
ma'am.
ask that question? I was just wondering if every learning community has representatives on that shack, because to me it's very important for the whole district to get to meet and talk about this.
I believe they do, Ms. Woodruff, and also on the textbooks committee that's adopting the new health adoption, we also have coaches and health teachers across the district.
Any other questions? Okay. Number 7, award solicitation of 22205 RFP E-rate 2022 district-wide wireless network electronics. We have number 8, award of solicitation number 222011 RFP E-rate 2022 high school fiber backbone cabin upgrade. Then we move to the pulled consent agenda items. approval of YISD contract 202-20145 with the El Paso Community College District. And then we move to the action items. Number 1, wage payments during emergency closure due to inclement weather. And then last, number 2, approve amendment to YSD contract 202-10223 with PSRBB Architects. We have any questions? No. Move forward. Number 6. Yeah, that's all right. Go to number 6. Yeah. Let's see what comes in. Choose number 4. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. The order of agenda has been approved. May I have an electronic motion and a second on the remaining consent agenda items listed on this agenda as recommended by administration?
Mr. President, I move to approve the remaining consent agenda items listed on this agenda as recommended by the administration.
Okay, everybody's in? Think everybody's voted? No?
Then we have a second by.
By Mr. Ramirez?
No, I'm in the mover.
No, I'm sorry, the mover. Ms. Woodruff, I'm sorry. Ms. Woodruff is the second. Yes, and it is approved. 5 yes, 0 no. We go to the pulled agenda items. Number 1, approve the YSD contract 2022-0145 with El Paso Community College. Using your electronic hands, is there any discussion? No further discussion. May I have a motion?
Mr. Vice President, I move to approve YSD contract number 2022045 with El Paso Community College District.
And a second by Mr. Rosales. And it is, we've got 4 yes, 0 no, and 1 absentee vote.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
The way that reads is that 2 trustees elected to not vote. Is that the way I'm reading that out there?
It's showing the 2 away. In gray, it does show the no vote, but when I do the minutes, I'll make sure that it's showing that they were away and not a no.
Okay. You
Because
okay
the
with
red
that?
is a no, but it's a 0.
Okay with that, Mr. Saul?
Would indicate no vote was recorded for that member of the board. In this case, it's because they're absent.
Okay, I'm probably making this harder than it needs to be, but it gives the appearance in my mind if they were absent, there's no, you don't get a no vote, you know. A no vote means in some cases that the trustee elected not to participate in that vote. That's what my concern is.
Well, you have 2 trustees that are not participating because they're not present.
Yes, sir, I understand that, but they were not here to vote.
Correct. And as Ms. Matheson indicates, the minutes will indicate that they were absent from the meeting.
Okay. I just have a different understanding of the term no vote, so thank
Well,
you.
see, you have yes and no.
Right.
And perhaps it might be better in the future for that to say no vote recorded, no vote cast, or just say have a separate category for absent. I mean, there are ways to make it perhaps more descriptive.
Okay.
Or you just remove it completely.
You could do that.
And you have a 4-1. And the minutes reflect that 2 of the members were absent.
That would solve it, because you still have the abstain for a member that's present and abstains.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
That's what we got you, dude. There you go. Number 6. Moving on. Resolution convening the Student Health Advisory Committee on curriculum materials regarding human sexuality, on prevention of child abuse, family violence, dating violence, and sex trafficking. Using your electronic hand, is there any questions or discussions?
I just wanted to ask.
Yes, Mr. Ramirez.
Dr. Chacon, you're answering these questions for this one? Okay. I just, somebody brought up the issue about it's every learning community, and you said there was teachers and members of the learning community involved in this. I would also like to tell our community as a whole that if any parent or guardian would like to be part of the discussion, please don't hesitate to contact your principal and make them aware of their feelings or how to get involved in the process.
And if I may add, the whole point of this agenda item and the resolution is that the SHAC will be posting its meetings online. They'll be recorded. The public will have notice of them in advance, can attend, all that sort of thing. So it raises that visibility for the public to do exactly what you're saying.
Thank you so much, Ms. Austin.
Thank you, Ms. Austin. So, any other questions? No? Using your electronic hand, is there any questions or discussions? No further discussions? May I have a motion? We have a second by Ms. Woodruff.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the resolution as presented, calling for the convening the School Health Advisory Committee to review and make recommendations regarding curriculum materials for the district's human sexuality instruction and for instruction on the prevention of child abuse, family violence, dating violence, and of course, and sex trafficking.
Thank you, Mr. Rosales. And all votes are in. We have 5 yes, 0 no. This passes. On to the action items. Wage payment during emergency closure due to inclement weather. Using your electronic hand, do we have any discussion? If no further discussion, may I have a motion?
Sir, we have a speaker.
Oh, yes.
I just want to tell the cabinet, I think this is very much the right thing to do for us. And again, this is why we're YISD strong, because we take care of our folks. So thank you.
No further discussion. May I have a motion? I have a second by Mr. Hagerty.
Vice President Bustillos, I move to approve a resolution as presented for wage payments to all regular employees during the emergency closure due to inclement weather on February 3rd, 2022.
Thank you. All votes are casted. We have 5 yes, 0 no. Number 2, approve the amendment to YISD contract number 2021-0223 with PSRBB Architects. Using your electronic hand, is there any discussion? No further discussion. May I have a motion?
Vice President Bustillos, I move to approve amendment to YISD contract number 202.
You got to turn on your,
Vice President Bustillos, I move to approve amendment to YISD contract number 202-10223 with PSRBB Architects for additional campus improvement services at Ysleta Middle School at the rate of 7% of actual construction costs contingent upon final negotiations, in-house council review, and Form 1295 certificate of interested parties.
and Mr. Rosales was the second. All votes are cast. And it is approved, 5-0. And that concludes. So may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. That's it.